Yeah. All right. So then we'll keep. I mean, I don't even know where to go now. It was like, dude, we just did to the audience out there. We just did 45 minutes. This is what we just now we just start all over. Dude, it's when well once like I said, dude, it's always good to run into you. Please promote away, promote the new special. Where can everybody find it? We'll get that out of the way and tell us about where you recorded it and stuff.
I recorded at the Mothership, Joe Rogan's Club in Austin. I actually had originally recorded it somewhere else, and I started editing it, and I didn't like the camera wasn't set right, and the lighting sucked. So after 3 months of editing it, I just flushed it, and I started all over again. And I went to Rogan's Club, and it came out. I thought it came out, it looked great. The 800-pound gorilla did the production. And it took me a long time to edit it, but it's out now. It just hit 350,000 views in 3 weeks, and so I'm really excited. It's getting not the best is the comments. Like, people are very generous, and as a comic, you look for the shitty ones.
Yeah, of course.
It validates how you feel about yourself, and they've really 100%. Been very positive. So it's good. And sometimes people give you a tip on YouTube, and I got a $500 tip yesterday from somebody.
Well, that's awesome, dude. Yeah. That only another 95 more of those, and you'll get all your money back.
Yeah,
you spent on it. You said the thing about the bad comics, because I can tell you some of the shittiest comments I've ever gotten. What's the shittiest comment that you have seen about the special? Because I know it's hilarious. It's like all your other previous shit has been great. So I mean, I know for a fact it's like but there are people that are evil. What's the most evil thing you've read?
I do a joke about not owning a gun, and a guy told me to buy one and turn it on myself. But those are the guys that are like, they're like part of that whole what do you Dabbleverse? What do you call that side of the internet that has like 5 or 6 guys that just troll each other, and they troll everybody, and they say horrible trolls, shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But they're comics, supposedly.
They just their comics just on the low key. They just have like their names hidden and stuff, and they're
they put their name. They put their names out. They have about 20 or 30,000 listeners, but they're all like activated. Like they sick them on people, and then they just go attack.
What you like the Red Bar guy?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, those kind of guys. Yeah.
Yes.
So when I get a comment like that, I always check who it is, and it's like, oh yeah, they're just a lunatic. Yes. And you just ignore it.
Just be glad you don't have a documentary made about you. There's guys out there that are making full on documentaries that are better than the shit on Netflix. I've watched hours upon hours of docs about this one New York comic. Well, I'm not going to name names, but it's like I'm fascinated, and so yeah, dude, we're doing good. As long as we have no documentaries, we're doing fucking
no
good.
Documentaries. It's been it's been pretty sweet, and thanks for having me on. I mean, not just to promote it. We've been trying to do this for a long time.
Well, you came back. You were here very, very. How long ago was that, JT? When we did because you did the Rising. Yeah, you came back.
Yeah,
I got it right here. April 22nd, 2020. Oh my God, dude. It's like that was right at the beginning of me growing that goatee. I don't think I was in my fingernail growing period of the pandemic, but I had a period where I was like, I'm going to see how long I can grow my fingernails.
Yeah.
Did you do any weird shit like that? Well, you have a family, so it's kind of hard for you to like.
Yeah, no, I started taking edibles, and I was sober, but I started taking edibles at night every single night. And because I was like, I'm such an insecure fuck. I needed the audience laughing at me every night to fill me up so I could get through another day. And after a year and a half of that not happening, I just started numbing myself with edibles every night. And then about 6 months ago, I was like, still taking them. I was like, hey, pandemic's over, dummy. So I stopped. So now I haven't had anything in 6 months.
Oh, good for you, man. Good for you. Dude, it really feels like I mean, a lifetime ago, and not just fucking the pandemic, but just that record. I mean, goddamn, that was 424, and you're coming back now at 191. Like uh, we JT, we keep doing this. We keep doing this. It has been so long. I can't wait, dude, because we're finally getting into the thick. Like this is our first Stooges record. Did we do an Iggy Pop record? I don't think so. Um, but I've seen Iggy twice. I've seen him
Really?
I saw him in, and I'm going to try to pull the picture up and send it to you. I saw him, and I'm not a huge fan, by the way. I am not a huge fan. I'm not saying I'm not a huge fan. Like dude, I love him. I love everything he represents. And like watching him on stage, the little clips that I've seen or watching him live, like I steal so much from so many performers when I do the jam or whatever. But when him and the Stooges got back together, I think it was in like 2006, right? They played the 930 Club. So me and John Moyer went. And I got a picture with him. I waited afterwards. I got a picture with him. I think it was Ron Ashton. There was the Ashton brothers. And yeah, because Dave Alexander had died and Mike Watt was on bass. And then I went home I went back to Los Angeles shortly after the Jelly Roll tour, and I spent a week there while I was waiting to do shows in, like, I think Bakersfield or something. So I had a full week. I did the jam and I had a week break, and he was playing the Palladium with Duff McKagan on bass, Andrew Watt on guitar, and Chad Smith on drums.
Oh,
And
really? Wow.
I mean, just insanity. That especially, because the dude is now, we checked the math, JT, but he's got to be 71. I mean, something like that. He's got to be
Yeah,
around that age.
he's got to be at least 71.
He's
Yeah,
77. So
77.
this is a year ago, roughly. And dude, like, he put on such an incredible show, just as good as he did almost 20 years prior. And it was actually really like one of those things where you're seeing him rock, rock, rock. Everybody's cheering. He finishes to do the encore, and then he turns to walk off the stage to go backstage. And it looked like every morsel of his body was in pain.
Yeah.
Just the way he was walking. And then he came back out and they did a fucking incredible encore, blew everybody away. Have you never seen him before?
No, I never saw him live. There was a really cool 60 Minutes did a piece on him like a year ago. And he's like a health nut now. He lives, I think, in Miami. And it was just all about his blender drinks and his exercise regimen. And, he's, I think you find that a lot with guys that were manic and heroin addicts. Like, they go deep into whatever they're into in life, whether it's trying to kill themselves or trying to be healthy. They go one way or the other hard.
Oh, that's me. I was an opiate addict. I was the best opiate addict. I knew how to call in fake prescriptions at different pharmacies through Los Angeles. I knew how to go doctor shopping and knew what words to say. I knew how much time it would take me to get to downtown LA and get back to Santa Monica to do a meeting with Comedy Central when I was getting the show sold, and to have nobody have any idea. And then once I got sober, I'm not sober. I take mushrooms quite a bit and smoke weed. So I hate saying that. I'm not to say I'm sober, but yeah, like now I'm a health nut. And now it's like, I know every macro that I put into my body, and I drink my thing in the morning, and I do this, the yoga. And I mean, you have to, it's like, especially if you're going to keep performing the way that he is. I mean, if he was doing drugs at this point, the way that he was still, or not even drugs, but just, not doing the recovery, I mean, he wouldn't be able to move.
Well, he's the guy who, I mean, his body just got beat up. I mean, not just the heroin use, but like, this is the first guy to stage dive. Like, he invented stage diving. He would cut himself on stage, and he would throw himself on the ground and like writhe around. And, it was like, I can't imagine that he could tour regularly. I like it. Trying to picture him doing that night in and night out is insane.
Yeah. Born in 47, often called the godfather of punk. I think this music is kind of referred to as like more proto punk, but this is the thing: there was no such thing as punk, so it's like at the time it was just fucking garage rock, and we did with JT. I think this is the most I've called you JT ever, Jeremiah. I hate calling you that. I'm gonna call you Jeremiah. We did a record recently. I guess the list bunches up certain shit, Greg, where it's like a few years ago during the pandemic, we had like the Ronettes and Diana Ross and the Supremes and another grouping of girl groups. And right now we're in the garage band, like we had this album. I don't know if you're familiar with a record called Nugs, and it was basically all the best of the garage rock from the late 60s, early 70s, almost psychedelic era, but really psychedelic means just like, like this, just Louie type shit, 3-chord songs, a variation of of blues, but blues with a crunchier, grungy sound.
Right.
You ever heard of that album Nugs? Because I think you dig it.
No, I don't think I know that.
I'll send you the link
whose
to
album?
it.
It's a collection of different stuff.
We had the guy, we had Lenny Kaye, the guy that put that together.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the Stooges were a part of that, but this is where the list has taken us right now.
Right. Right.
Into this. So you're born in New York State. I'm not sure. Are you New York City or
just outside the city in Tarrytown?
Yes. It's Tarrytown. Yes,
Yeah.
Tarrytown. So you're a little bit older than me, but like, how did the Stooges like make their way into your life? Because I understand Bruce. I understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Iggy.
Well, I mean, I was a huge Ramones fan when I was young, and I can't remember. One of the Ramones said in an interview that that this was their favorite album of all time. That Funhouse was the greatest album of all time. And so, it was back when you bought vinyl, and we used to take the number 13 bus into White Plains, and there was a Chinese head shop that sold albums in the back that were good. There was a shitty record shop, but they didn't have the Stooges. And then I went to the head shop, and I picked it up, and it was one of those things where we had a pool table in our basement. And when I would get into an album, I would just go down there and I would shoot pool for like 3 hours and just listen to one album. Oh, you had to flip it, flip it every 20 minutes and just listen to it over and over again. And I think I was talking to Jeremiah before about how that album it's like mainlining. It just goes right into you, and you feel like right out of the gate, the first song, I haven't listened to the album in a while, but I remember the first song, he's grunting and growling like right out of the gate, and you're just like, what the fuck? And then by the end, the last song I could never listen to. It was like, it sounded like, how most bands, rock bands, end their song in the last 5 minutes is just feedback and fuzz. And, that's an entire 8-minute song for them to end the album. Unlistenable. Otherwise a great album, but I could never listen to that one.
Well, I think, when I was going through the research of what this record was, so when they did their first record, they used this producer, John Cale. And John Cale is, if I'm not mistaken,
he's huge.
He's played for the Velvet Underground.
Yeah, right.
Legend in, understanding the idea of rock and classical and avant-garde. And he produced their first record. Funhouse, they wanted to go, I think I may freaking fuck up how this actually happened. Let me see if I find it. So Elektra Records releases the Stooges' debut record, mixed reviews, limited commercial success. The head, Jack Holtzman, believed that the MC5, another Michigan-based band, had more commercial potential than the Stooges. So he asked Kingsman keyboardist Don Gallucci to produce this record. The Kingsmen, the Kingsmen, we all know it, may not be my name, but JT, it's fucking, Louie, whoa, yeah, just fucking literally the birth of what you would call garage rock. You know what I mean? Like, it's like the Strokes, everybody has imitated basically that. And by the way, we got to give ourselves a shout out and pat on the back. And I'm just going to tell you this, Greg, because it's fucking cool. MC5 are being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year. And our podcast is being mentioned in the presentation piece. And they're using a piece of audio from our podcast because we had Kim Thale from Soundgarden on to talk about. Yeah. And he played with them, and he just has this incredible quote. Like, it's real, it's raw, it's bold, it's rock, it's punk, it's the MC5, and
that's awesome. There you go.
They were like, can we use it? And I was like, no. I was like, no, you cannot. You got to give me credit. And I want free tickets to the fucking museum for life, and I want tickets to the party in Brooklyn. And they're like, the party is actually in Cleveland. And I was like, all right, you know what, you can just have it. I'm not going to fucking Cleveland, dude. You know, no, but it rules. And then this is what's cool is that the MC5, you know, which are, I could see the correlation in why they saw a similarity. But this guy, Don Gallucci, man, why this record is so in your face, it's so raw. The idea that he had was he was going to get the band in the studio. They literally ripped out the studio piece by piece. So it was just this raw room, and they had them play. They hit record, and they just had them play the song as many times as they needed together until they got it. Sometimes they're doing 16 takes. They're doing 35 takes of one song. This was all recorded within the span of from May 11th to May 25th. They lived in this studio and just ran the fucking through it. And it was cool because Iggy, what they wanted to capture was that thing that you said. It's like that raw power of what he has, and the first stage diver, the energy. And they wanted his microphone noise to also be picking up the kick drum and the snare. And so in the new re-release that just came out, because there's a really good shit on YouTube about it, it'll tell you about like how many different takes. And it's funny, in an interview with Kurt Loder, he's like, you know, I just listened to all the 35 takes of it. He goes, I really liked take 13, you know, and it's like, because that's what they got. So Gallucci is basically this guy that's telling them to take it down to the most rawest form. And I wanted to ask you, like, before we even get into anything about the album and songs, who is your Don Gallucci?
My Don Gallucci?
Yeah.
Like, who's the great producer?
No. But yeah, but who's the guy that gave you the advice? I mean, the advice, or whether, you know, you're starting off comic and it was kind of like, you know what I mean? As a comedian, are you in a rock band?
No, I was in 7th and 8th grade. My Don Gallucci was Kevin Meaney for sure. He's the guy who, he used to tell me, like, don't do a show you can't do in front of your mother. And I was like, Kevin, that's not me. I can't do that. But he did say to me, he said, tape every one of your shows and listen to it the next day with a notebook next to you. And he goes, don't say no to anything for the first 10 years. Just do everything. And so I was doing, 3, 4, 5 sets a night when I could in New York and Boston. And he's the guy who, like, brought me on the road with him for the first time. Those were the first, like, long sets I did on the road. He brought me on HBO on one of his specials to do a sketch. That was the first time I was on TV. He was my champion.
He just passed away not too long
ago.
Like
8 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember we were doing the jam in Philadelphia, and he was supposed to come down for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was booked on it, and then something happened and he couldn't make it. But yeah, I remember fucking hilarious comic. I remember seeing him in the early days of Comedy Central.
He was the best.
Dude. No, how did you? No, good.
Nobody killed, like, in terms of destroying a room. Like, the whole crowd bent forward, holding their stomachs, not breathing. Like, that was regular for him. He took it to a whole other level.
You know, it's funny that you say that. I was listening to the Adam Sandler interview on Rogan, and they were talking about him as being one of the hardest people they've ever seen kill.
Yeah, it was something about his joy and his silliness. It was like, I mean, Brian Regan has elements of that. When you're just silly, people kind of go, it gets rid of people's inhibitions in a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And and he just gave 1,000% on stage. He wore his jacket and his bow tie, and he would be sweating and singing and dancing, and it was infectious. And then once the crowd starts laughing that hard, they feed off each other. It becomes an experience. It's not a show. It's like an experience.
Yeah. Like, why do you think, because I know him because I love comedy, but why do you think if he didn't get bigger than if you've got Adam Sandler, you and Joe Rogan talking about this guy as being this incredible, killer, like, was it just, did he not want to play the game, or did something happen? I mean, without like speaking ill of the guy, but why didn't more people know about him?
Well, he had a good like 10-year run where he had HBO specials and a million Tonight shows. He had his own sitcom, and he was playing theaters. And then honestly, like, I feel like he got stuck with not writing a lot of new material. And I think it got to where he was killing so hard that it was difficult for him to not kill that hard by doing new stuff. And he kind of got stuck. And then he got a role on Broadway in Hairspray, which he was on for like 5 or 6 years, which kind of took him out. Once you step out of the circuit with clubs, it's really hard to get back in again.
That sounds like not posting on Instagram. If you don't feed the algorithm, it just forgets about you. I took a month and a half break when I had my throat surgery, and it's like, dude, I could post the greatest video in the world and I'll get fucking 30 views. It's insane how unforgiving the clubs are, fucking the internet is. I was also curious, how did you record all of your earlier sets? Did you, because you started in like 95, 96, am I right?
When did I start? No, I started in like 1989. I was in college.
How do you record?
I've been doing it for 35 years.
It
was a big, cassette tape recorder. And I remember one time I was doing this college in Minot, North Dakota. And I would put my recorder like backstage. I didn't want to bring it on stage, so I had it backstage. And then I had a good set, and I come back and I'm looking for my recorder and I can't fucking find it. And I'm like, did somebody steal my tape recorder? And so like I'm walking out, and the guy that booked me for the show, the student activities guy, was sitting there, and I came over to get my check, and he had his backpack open, and I saw my recorder. I go, dude, that's my tape recorder. He's like, oh, that's weird. Like somebody must have put it in there when they were cleaning up. And so later on, I'm listening to the tape. And after I finish my set, you hear somebody go, what's this? Who's that? Oh, grab it, man. Yeah, I need a recorder. So you can hear him stealing it.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, but I listen to every one of those sets, man. I still listen to my sets.
Yeah, I need to get back into doing that. I used to like do my sets and then listen to it on the drive home in LA. But it's like here in New York, it's like sometimes I don't know, you're hanging out until fucking, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to see how I can spin this back into this record. I guess it was, I guess just New York is a little bit more dangerous, like the Stooges.
There you go. They were dangerous. Isn't it crazy how bands, and how do you just get on heroin? Like, don't you know? Like the first time you do heroin, don't you have some awareness that it never ends well?
I think there's some people that can hold it together long enough for someone to see the art that they're creating. I'm not saying that everybody on heroin like is like, oh my God, I'm a genius now. I mean, most of the time it goes south, obviously. But I think it's just, you see somebody out, dude. Have you ever done like a Percocet, or like?
Oh no, opiate? I was addicted to opiates as well. Not for long, right, for 6 months. 6 months, dude. I was stealing them. If you had me over to a dinner party, check your medicine cabinet, because those that Vicodin you had there for a rainy day, that's not,
It's gone.
it's gone. I had multiple doctors. I had shoulder surgery. So I had my general practitioner, I had the surgeon, I had PT. Everybody was writing me scripts. And then I had a friend, Josh, who knew a doctor who was crooked. So I'd go play paddle tennis and he'd have bags of it.
Oh
I'd
my
buy
God.
Yeah.
I mean, you when you're an addict, you figure out every possible way
Yeah.
to get it. So then you obviously know that it's like it feels so good. So especially if you're doing heroin, which is like the creme de la creme, you do it once, you feel amazing, and then you want to do it again. And
No,
then
I
you
had
just start
some of the
forgetting.
best sets of my life on
Exactly.
Vicodin. I had
Dude.
no fear. There was no fear.
People don't understand like that when you call it a painkiller, yeah, if you break your knee or your foot or whatever the fuck, yeah, it's going to kill that pain, but it kills all the bags that we're carrying around every day with us, like of our childhood and our dad's non-love and this, that, and the other thing. It's like when you take a painkiller, you are at even Steven zero, and you just feel like it's just everything feels great. It's like when somebody said there was a manager at a comedy club in LA. I won't say who. He doesn't work there anymore, but he said it's like you walk into a room and you realize you feel better than everybody in the room. You can just look around and you're just like, dude, this is the place to be. And you're like, you're in the improv lab and you're like, I know, but it fucking rules.
I
dude.
know. And like, I remember going to a family function with a lot of relatives, and I could talk, even the ones I didn't like, I could sit there and talk to them all night, be interested, be happy. Like I had no resistance to people, anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Not when, but like, how hard was it for you to break free? I just got to know, like, cause I had years, I did 16 years on and off. And then I got good at going through detox, and I'm assuming you didn't break free until the one break, and then you've just stopped, obviously.
Yeah. I tried to stop a few times, and it doesn't take long to get hooked. That's the thing. And I remember the 2 days after I just stopped cold turkey, which was stupid. And for 2 days, it was so dark. I barely got out of bed, and I was like suicidal. It was so fucking bad. It was so bad that I knew that I could never do it again. That was the good part about it. Like, I knew that the pain I was going through, I never wanted to experience again.
Yeah. I felt the same way. And then I did that 14 more times.
Oh my God.
Dude, I got so good at it. I just knew I could get it down to like, all right, I'm going to lock myself in a room. I'm going to smoke as much weed as possible. I'll have NyQuil to fall asleep. Or if I could get a hold of a Flexerol or a Ativan or a Xanax, even better. And then I'd
sounds like a really clean way to stop.
Oh, dude, I would do it. I would just numb myself as best as I can. And then, but that last one, and I've told this story a million times. Sam Tripoli was the guy that got me clean, because he asked me, he knew I relapsed, and he goes, when are you gonna like be done with this? And I go, probably when I die. And then he goes, okay, or you're going to be that 50-year-old comic still hanging out at the store that almost had a TV show. And then I just imagined still being alive and having drugs have ruined my life, but being a failure. And that was it. I was like, oh dude, death is final. Having to live with failure, that's a fear that I could never. So
yeah,
that's what kept me sober, dude.
Dude, being an old failure in Hollywood is just like that. It hasn't happened yet, but when I feel like it's ending, I'm out. I am in Albuquerque, Miami. I don't give a fuck, but I am not. I'm not going to be the guy like you see in Griffith Park with a German Shepherd, and he wants to talk a lot. He's so lonely, and he's going to chew your ear off, and then he's going to go to an AA meeting. He still reads the paper in paper form. I'm not going to be that guy.
No, please don't. Because you can talk, and you have that like that gene inside of you, which is just like, I can't help it. But it's like, I'm the same way. It's just, but there's no fucking way that was going to be me. And you see those guys still. So God bless their soul. All right. All right. Let's get into this record.
You should do a series of albums that got panned that then got looked back at as like Pet Sounds.
Oh yeah.
Shit on. Everybody shit on it. And now it's like number one on people's greatest albums of all time.
It's, you know, it's funny that you say that's the one record that on all the variations of the Rolling Stone magazine 500 greatest albums list, that's never moved. It's been at number 2 since the 02 list, the 08 list, the 2012 list, and even the re-ranking of the 2020 list. It's stayed at number 2, whereas Sgt. Pepper has gone from number 1 to like number 25.
No.
So yeah, I swear to you, yeah, dude. This is like the 2020 list is a totally different thing.
Yeah.
Way different. The people that voted on it. Like, I don't even know if this record, before we get into the tracks, that would be a good question. Is this record, because he always labels it for us, if it's okay, here you go. So this is the first of 3 times we're talking about the Stooges. We'll talk about their self-titled debut album in 6 weeks at 185. Iggy and the Stooges' Raw Power at 73. And that's coming in from 1973 at 128. And then, but on the 2020 re-rank, the self-titled album fell to 488. This album jumped all the way. Oh, this album went all the way up to number 94, and Raw Power didn't make the cut. Well, here's the thing, man. I think this record is important. After talking to Morty and watching the documentaries, it's about the way that they recorded it and the way that like they did something so raw. So what was the word? Dangerous. This record is fucking dangerous. Like, you can feel the intensity.
It feels like one of those records that, as the father of a daughter, I think I don't want my daughter to ever hear this music. It feels like it's going to unleash carnal lust and violence and acting out. It feels dangerous. And that's why, you know, if you talk about, I don't know, something punk you called it, but like
proto-punk,
like it feels like what punk is supposed to be, which is like, people talk about Green Day being punk. I fucking hate Green Day. It's bubblegum punk. Like, it doesn't make you feel dangerous.
It does not. And what's so funny is literally the recording I did yesterday was Green Day Dookie, which, you know, is the beginning of what you would call pop punk. And if you break away all of the spiky hair and the punk outfits, and you get rid of the distortion on those Green Day songs, it's just a pop record. You could take 90% of those songs and give them to the Beatles in the early days of their career on Please Please Me, and you'd be like, oh my God, it's a great Beatles song. This is not. This is like, I mean, this is like I think this is, when you say it's when they say call it proto-punk, I feel like I can hear the Bo Diddley riffs. I can hear the old blues shit. It's, and that, I don't know. We've done the MC5 before. I don't know enough of their music to say that it's the same, but they lump these 2 bands together, obviously, because them on stage, their recording processes are something unlike other people were doing. I wanted to ask you, being that you've been doing comedy for 35 years, who was the most, I don't know if I want to say most dangerous set or the most dangerous comic that you've seen?
Most dangerous. I mean, I would say Nick DiPaolo in some ways, when he was like really in his prime. Like, he would go at audiences with stuff that he didn't back off of. Like, a lot of comics, they take a jab and then they get resistance and they kind of fall. He just stayed on it. And, Bill Hicks, obviously, I saw him live 3 times, and he'd walk a big section of the crowd.
Yeah.
And what I liked about him is, like, he started in Texas. So he started in a red state with gun-toting, Christ-loving people, and he did that comedy. So right out of the gate, he's forming his voice as a counter to the status quo. And so then he would come to other cities, and he was just, the thing I consider dangerous is the guy that doesn't back off, that just stays in it and keeps coming at you, and he doesn't care if you're leaving the room. that Nick DiPaolo he got in fights on stage. He called guys' girlfriends cunts in the front row and they'd attack him. It was crazy.
Holy shit, dude. I always remember seeing, and I saw him later in his career, but Rick Shapiro. I mean,
Oh yeah.
he was like so confrontational,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I mean, and that's kind of what like Iggy's doing. Like, he is, he's not attacking the audience, but he's trying to like, he wants a reaction. It's like when they say the proto punk stuff, it's like what Henry Rollins used to do. It's what Minor Threat used to do with Bad Brains, all of those bands. And it's like, I remember seeing Rick, and I think that's a very good reason. I mean, it was a crash course in what comedy can be. And, I think a lot of his issues, especially we talked about, we were talking about drugs and mental health. I think like he had a lot of shit he had to deal with. But I mean, I saw brilliant sets by that guy, man. And
Brilliant. I don't throw that word around a lot, but he really did stuff that was so fucking smart, and he was breaking all the rules of stand-up structurally. Yeah. He was, doing things that were, he got inside the heads of the audience. If he saw like 4, girls from NYU in the front row, he would just crawl up inside their brains and he would explain them to the audience. He would explain them to themselves.
Yeah.
It was uncanny.
Yeah, it really was. It really was. I think he still has one of my dad's jackets.
Oh, really?
He would just come to where I was staying, and he's like, "Can I borrow this jacket?" He's like, "I'll give it back." And then that was a wrap on that, dude. And I drove him around. I was one of the comics that drove him around for a few weeks. But in those few weeks, look, it's I know like he used to like not use young comics at all, but I don't know if the other guys that he did take around or that took him around are still around. But I was like, if this guy's gonna use me for rides, I'm gonna get spots and I'm gonna learn as much as I fucking can of the good stuff. Also, what to do and what not to do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing about Iggy is that he knew what to do. He also knew what not to do because, this guy, and including the Stooges, I mean, they'd only lasted for a few records, but Iggy, I mean, with all of his craziness, it's like, dude, he's had, we have the Bowie era coming up after this. We have it where he goes from being cool to being uncool. And now he's out of the ecosystem of like popular music. And then fucking, a few years, I think in like the late 90s, he gets, what is
Lust
it? They
for
use
Life?
Lust for Life comes back. And next thing you know, Iggy's got a reawakening. And then in 2006, 30 years after this record came out, at least 30 years, they're touring one of the biggest tours, and same dude playing at the Palladium. It's like we were supposed to do, there was a festival in Colombia or Dominican Republic. It was Dominican Republic, and I couldn't do it because I went on tour with Jelly, and fucking Iggy Pop was supposed to be one of the headliners. There was three or four comics. I was so bummed because like I said, I wanted to see this guy, dude. I love even let's get into the record because there's so like Down on the Street, is such a fucking crazy way to open the record. There's this Doors style organ overdub by Don Gallucci on it.
Right.
And like we said, it's immediately just in your face. No wonder fucking Rage Against the Machine covered this on their album Renegades. I mean, what was that like listening to this? That must have like punched you in the face when you first heard this.
Well, it definitely, The Doors is a really good reference. I feel like the Stooges are like a sloppy Doors. Like they've got this front man that's willing to sweat and bleed and roll around. And, Jim Morrison went into the crowd also and just like break down the barrier between the audience and the performer. And when you throw in that organ, and then there's like a fucking saxophone that makes you almost feel like there's some of the songs almost sound like jazz. Like there's an element there's an element of like a punk jazz thing happening.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about down on the street. We mentioned about the dangerous side of sets and comedy. You started in New York City pre-gentrification. What how gritty were those early years of stand-up comedy in New York?
Well, it depended on the neighborhood. Like Uptown was always nice. You know, the comic strip in stand up New York, you'd go up there, fine. And then you'd come down to the village, and, you know, it was really, I had a car. I lived in the city for 10 years, and I had a Mazda 626, dented
Nice.
and rusted. I didn't wash it
Nice.
once. I didn't want to
Nice.
wash it. I don't want anyone stealing it. And
Fuck no.
so I left it unlocked. I parked it on. I lived in Chelsea, and it was just, you know, you were very aware all the time. You did not, like nowadays. If there were cell phones back then, you would have gotten killed because you had to be looking around you, looking behind you. If a group of guys are coming at you or one scary guy, you got to know to look straight ahead, not look at them, but not look down. There was all these like, I loved it. I loved it every time I put my key into my door, I looked around first. You know, there was something
Yeah.
exciting about that. And like, I live in Venice Beach now. People, oh, how do you live in Venice? I fucking love it. I'm not afraid of a couple crazy people. They make it
I
interesting.
know.
You know?
I know. People think like they're like they'll say like New York, it's so dirty. I go, it's always been dirty.
Yeah.
Like there's been bags of trash on the street corners for fucking
Rats.
decades. Yeah,
Yeah.
rats for decades. That's one of the things I love about New York. You know, and even through gentrification, it's still, you know, it's still like you still like have to pay attention. I mean, you know, I'm walking around at night with my dog, an 80-pound Doberman, so nobody's fucking with me. But like I
What
see
part
it,
of town are
and
you in?
I'm in Gramercy, 22nd and First. So
Oh,
quiet. Yeah, dude. It's like, and truth be told, it's like it's the perfect for a guy in his early 40s. Like it's 44 early 40s or is it mid?
no, early for sure.
Okay, cool. I'll
Yeah.
take early. One and by the end November it's mid. So yeah, so I think for where I'm at in my life, it's like I love it. And yes, dude, I come home at night and there's people drinking sometimes and smoking pot on my stoop,
Yeah.
you know, but it's just like you know, they move out of the way. There's a social
Well,
contract.
if you have confidence, that's what I kind of like about it is it forces you to summon your confidence when you're walking down the street, and then you walk into a comedy club after you've just like sort of ducked out of a couple fights. You walk
Yeah.
on stage and it feels easy. It feels safe
Yeah.
inside there.
Yeah, you're not lying, dude.
Yeah, nobody's
Oh.
yelling at me. There's bouncers that'll throw out violent people. This is great. I feel protected.
Yeah, that's why LA just most of them are all pussies because it's like they get in their car from their parking lot and then we
Yeah.
drive over there and there's the bad stuff out there, but I'm safe in my
Right.
Corolla. You know,
Yeah.
it's you know, it's down on the street, dude. All right,
Yeah.
Loose. Loose, the Stooges intended for Loose to be the album's first track. Electra, however, felt that Down in the Street would be a stronger opener. I do agree with that. Any thoughts on the second song on this record or you
I
know,
like I don't know what number it is on the album, but TV Eyes was always the song that stuck with me the most. Like I just
Yeah.
felt like I don't know, it just like it's the one that sticks in your head.
So funny you say that. TVI is the inspiration. We brought up Rage Against the Machine a second ago, which is so, dude. This is I'll get it. My brain starts working in so many different ways. There's 9 things I want to say. So Rage basically was inspired by this song for their song "Sleep Now in the Fire." It's very similar riff. It's crazy how much inspiration Tom Morello wears on his sleeve. And I found that out all through doing this podcast. That was how I became friends with him, was when we did. Have you ever heard of a band called Gang of Four?
Yeah.
You know so Gang of Four, dude, I listened to that record and I was like, holy shit, a lot of this sounds like Rage. And when I met him at a Kiss show, the Kiss were playing the Whiskey, and I snuck into the VIP through a friend, and he did the intro for them. And then after the show, he's just sitting at a table, and people are coming up being like, "Oh my God, Tom, we love you," and he's being very, very nice and pleasant to people, but then moving them along. And then I walk in, and he's like kind of on his phone. I go, "Hey, Tom," I was like, "Can I ask you a question?" And he's not paying attention to me at all. And I say, I'm just curious, how influenced by Andy Gill from Gang of Four's guitar playing were you? And it was like his eyes lit up, and he literally pulled the seat out, and he was like, "Sit down."
Oh, there you
So,
go.
so I think, for sure, Rage Against the Machine and everything in their just rock and roll souls, of course, are pulling the energy that Iggy has on stage. Fucking Zach De La Roca can match that. Maybe not as putting peanut butter on his body and cutting himself.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? There's definitely, it's like they're all taking from one another. I wanted to ask you about TVI. Is you came up in a time when comedians' main goal was to get a sitcom, and what was your like experience with that? Did you ever play the game? Did you have a sitcom, or did you get close to it? Or
I had four different development deals for sitcoms. Because look, here's the thing, I'm not hard on the eyes, and but I'm not good looking either. So I think I was in that sweet spot for sitcoms. And so when I went the first time I got one, I'd been doing comedy like 8 years, and but I'd been pounding out sets for 8 years. So you were doing a 10-minute set. That was a fucking sprint for me. So they send me up to Montreal. I've never met anybody from the industry. And so this is back when there was like feeding frenzies would happen at the Montreal New Faces Festival. Like guys would come out. Ray Romano came out one year, and the next year he's got a hit show on CBS. So it wasn't scouts. It wasn't the assistant to the assistant of the cast director. It was like, the network heads were at the Montreal Festival. The president of William Morris was at the festival. It was big. And so I do a set that goes well, and there starts to be some talk. And then I do a second show, and there's a ton of industry there. Then I do a third show, and it goes so well. I get off stage. Kevin Meaney is there, and he gives me a big hug, and he goes, "Don't look behind me, but there's a line forming." And I was getting business cards from Universal, Gersh, Warner Brothers, like one after the other. And I signed with Dave Becky as my manager. Ruth Ann Secunda as my agent. They were the two hottest reps in comedy.
Yeah.
And I got like a $250,000 development deal with Fox for a show. I had no fucking idea what I was doing. I had never read a sitcom script. I didn't like sitcoms. And so I went through this process with this guy who was a Seinfeld writer. And he just didn't get me. I didn't get him. The script fucking sucked, and the whole thing went away. But like that year, I was living in New York, and they kept flying me out first class. They'd put me at the Four Seasons, and I'd get a Mustang convertible. And I remember Hello Nasty had just come out, the Beastie Boys. I just remember cranking Hello Nasty in my convertible Mustang, pulling up to the Four, and I was like, "This is fucking great." And so I'm flying home, and I get on a flight, and I've been out all night. I'm exhausted. So I get on my first class flight, and I got the window seat, and I sit down, and I fluff up my jacket. I lay down. I'm like, all right, I'm sleeping this whole flight. Guy plops down next to me, slaps me on the shoulder, puts his hand out. He goes, "How you doing? I'm John." And I was like, oh, fuck this guy. So he starts talking to me, and he's like, so what are you doing out in L.A.? You live in New York? I was like, yeah, I'm a comedian. I got this development deal. It's, a lot of meeting with a lot of big writers, and I'm going on and on. And then I go, all right, nice to meet you. And then I put my head down. Flight takes off. All of a sudden, John's up. And everybody's saying, "Hey, John, nice to meet you. Can I get an autograph?" And, it's like he's the biggest fuck. And then he sits down, and now I'm up. Now I'm like, all right, what's going on? I go, hey, so what do you do? And he goes, I won an Oscar. And I was like, oh, he goes, John Voight, nice to meet you. I was like, get the fuck out of here. And so we ended up talking. He was flying home because his father was on his deathbed, and his father was he was a greenskeeper for a for a golf course in Westchester County, and I grew up caddying at a country club, and we just connected. And for 5 hours, I had this heart. My father had just died like 6 months before, and we had this heart to heart for like the entire flight. And then he gives me his phone number and his address, and then I never called him because I just felt like that was kind of such a perfect interaction.
No, I know.
I don't want to. And so, cut to about 10 years later, I'm on the Bob and Tom show in Indiana. And Bob and Tom go, hey, we got a call coming in from John Voight. Do you mind if we take it during your interview? And I said, no, fucking John Voight. So he comes on, and and Bob and Tom are like, hey, we're sitting here with a comedian. He says you might know him, Greg Fitzsimmons. And he goes, Fitzdog, because that's what I told him my name was. And he remembered me. It was unbelievable.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I mean, you know, dude, you said you connected over, you know, the father's passing. It's like I remember everything from that whole era when I lost my dad. I remember almost every person I talked to that gave me good advice. I remember the first sex I had with my girlfriend afterwards. Like that was like, dude, a dead dad post nut.
Yeah.
That's the best. That's the best orgasm you're ever gonna have.
Because all your emotions are right on the surface.
Oh my God, it's crazy. And dude,
no, it's like Halle Berry and remember Halle Berry and Monster?
Yeah, make me feel good. Yeah, please make me feel good. Yeah. But what I think is also cool about, you know, getting back into TVI and having the sitcom, much like this song, where this song has like a false ending. You think the song ends, but then it like roars back in.
Yeah.
You know, after the sitcom boom, there's this moment of silence and stagnation. And then like, I was going to ask you, when do you think comedy roared back? But I think it started coming back with the birth of podcasts. And I think there's like something really, you know, it's you've been on two of the most important shows and not just podcasts, but radio as well, with Howard Stern and with Joe Rogan, where it's like, you know, in a sense, almost public perception can change. There's no guardrails. So in a sense, like the TV eye is off of you. When did you start seeing that was like the real, like, holy shit, like Carson ain't shit anymore, it's this? Like, when did you feel that?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like I've done so many podcasts and I've been on Rogan and Stern so many times, but I never really got the jump from it that like a guy like Segura got or Bert. I'm like a really good hang, but
Yeah.
I don't lead the podcast. I don't take it over with crazy stories about Joey Diaz doing blow and hookers and, you know, people.
Yeah.
I'm just more like the guy that they go, you know what? He's one of my favorite guests on the podcast, but not, I gotta go listen to his. I gotta go to his show in Tacoma. Like I've had like a nice steady, I mean, that shit's given me like a nice steady club following for a lot of years, but I was never the theater guy. You know, I think it's just a function of that great mystery of what makes somebody pop and somebody else not, you know? And I'm not resentful about it. I've got a great family. Like I said, I make a really nice living. I got Emmys sitting there on my shelf.
Wait. What's the Emmys from? I know you've written on a shitload of great programs.
Yeah, I wrote on Louis C.K.'s show. I wrote on Bill Maher's show.
Yes,
Jamie Foxx and Cedric and a million people. But these were for the Ellen DeGeneres show. I can't even say it.
Wait, so did you work with the TV show or her sitcom?
Yep.
No, the sitcom or
the talk show.
Or the talk show. So you worked with Karen, right? Karen Kilgariff.
Karen Kilgariff, that's right.
Yeah. That's my buddy, dude.
Yeah,
I love
she's
Karen.
great.
Yeah.
She's great.
She's
we were there.
So fun.
We were there 6 months before the show launched, just putting it together, and then I was there the first 2 seasons, and so like I feel like I have balance in my life, and I did spend a lot of time writing instead of just doing stand up. But no, it's interesting. Like you see somebody else, they'll do one appearance on a big podcast, and all of a sudden they're like launched.
Yeah.
and I've just more been accepted than launched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey man, dude, but you're chipping away. Maybe
No,
that 57th appearance
now
is the one that.
I do a joke. I said I crawl my way to the middle. I'm staying right here. This is what I like. Nobody harasses me. I don't give. No one's asking me for money. You know, it's a good solid life.
Good, dude. I love it. All right, let's see. We got a couple more tracks. I guess we got to talk. Well, I mentioned Dirt. Depeche Mode. So the end of side 1 is the 7-minute song Dirt. Depeche Mode covered it. Dirt was ranked number 46 on Gibson's top 50 guitar solos list in 2010. Came in just behind Deep Purple's Highway Star. That's a band I really need to dig into. It was Deep Purple. Are you a fan of them?
Dun, 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 dun,
No, that's Cream.
Oh, that's Cream. Oh, I'm thinking that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
That's so funny. Let's see. Do I have a good question for that about gossip? Man, let's see. Do we have anything?
Can you play a little bit of that last song? Or are you not allowed to for clearance reasons?
Which one?
That final track, the noise. I don't know what it's called.
Oh, LA Blues?
Yeah, LA Blues. That's what it is.
Well, while he gets that ready, I wanted to, because I really like, well, I was going to ask you, 1970, I was going to ask you about your dad being, because he did so much cool shit. Speaking of like, did you learn anything from your dad who worked in radio and worked in television? What was the best advice that he had given you?
Listen, he said, if you put all your attention on the other person, just trust that you're going to say something it's going to be connected to them. It's going to be in the moment, and it'll be your best creativity because you'll not be distracted thinking about what you're going to say next. And so I think that goes back to me being a good podcast guest is like, I just listen. I just try to be, I let them take the reins and, throw in some good shit and don't try to be the star,
100%, dude. That's one of the things I think the best advice for me on this podcast is there's so much info for me to go over.
Yeah.
And it's always like, I ask somebody a question, I'm listening, but then I'm like, what the fuck do I talk about LA Blues or do I talk about the fucking, this is such a hard thing.
I prefer being a guest 100% better than being the host.
Oh my God. Yes, dude. No, that's awesome. That's perfect advice. Funhouse, this song is talking about the Stooges mansion in Ann Arbor where they'd live and make music and have these like wild drug infused parties. I love this song, but being that you're a comic and most of us can't right off the jump ever live alone, do you have any stories of living with other comics? Did you live with anybody, and did you ever have? What's the craziest story if you've lived with another?
I don't think I ever really lived with comics. Yeah, I did in New York a little bit. I had this 2-bedroom on Mulberry Street in Little Italy, and I lived with a guy named George McDonald, who was a great dude, and Lauren Dabrowski, she ended up being the showrunner on Mad TV. And we were all paying like $300 a month. And the apartment was like an old tenement apartment where like it looked like it was going to crumble. And we were on it was a 6th-floor walk up. And so if like somebody came to visit, there was no intercom. So you had to either walk down 6 flights of stairs or I was in the back of the building. I would walk to my friend Tom O'Neill's apartment in the front of the building, knock on the door, and I'd have a sock with the keys and I would throw it down to them. And so the apartment was rented to us by the Ragos, and it was Tony and Gladys, and they had grown up in this building. They both lived there on different floors, started dating in high school, and they were married, and they had had 2 kids, and now they were like, 70, and they couldn't make it up the stairs anymore. But they got this place had been rent controlled their entire lives. And I think they were paying like $250 a month for this 2-bedroom. So their son Gregory buys them a condo around the corner in a nice new building. Gregory was in construction. He knew people. And so, like, he paid cash for some condo they were living in, but they kept the apartment and they sublet it. And we would pay them $1,000 a month between, there was 3 of us. And you would walk it over there. And the apartment, it was furnished. And it literally had the plastic on the couch. It had the end table had gun casings in it, and a phone listening device. And so I walk around. First of the month, I'd go in, and I would give Tony and Gladys $800. They always wanted cash. And then Tony would go into the next room. They would make me espresso, and they'd have cannolis. And then Tony would go in the next room, and I would slip Gladys the other $200. Tony don't need to know about that. That's my bingo money. And it was just like tin ceilings, and you could hear the mice like walking over your head at night when you were sleeping, and it was great.
It's I mean I squatted with a comic before. It's actually funny. You might know Yasser Lester. Do you know Yasser? He's a writer.
Kind
He
of.
worked. I think he wrote like on the Carmichael Show. He's
Okay.
been writing on a bunch of different shows. I started with him in this. We were all squatting in this apartment. And with this guy who was in a small band, and his girlfriend, they fought nonstop. And it was just funny because all 3 of us have gone on to have great careers. Like me with the jam and with stand up and voice acting, all the shit I do, and Yasser with TV writing and being an actor on different shows. And then the guy this random guy became in part of this. You ever heard of a band called the Black Veil Brides?
No.
No, they're this huge I mean, they're I don't call them goth, but they're like metal. And it's just, we lived in fucking, I mean, it was shit. I was just waiting for us to get evicted. The notices would keep coming to the door, and it just kept staying there until one day we just showed up, and it was like, we got to get all our shit out. And then that was it. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know how I fucking survived as long as I did. But it's like, God bless it, dude.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a rite of passage. Everybody is, as a comic, like, unless you're like, just super rich. I mean, there's something really, not, I want to say humbling, but just you have to live in shit, and you have to fucking struggle.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't think everybody does, but
Well, it's so hard now because, like, kids that are starting today, if you're 23 and you're trying to make it and have an apartment and live on your own and pay for a cell phone and insurance and a car, like, it's literally impossible. You have to be working 2 jobs just to get by without even doing stand-up.
Stooges are widely regarded as a seminal proto-punk act. The band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2010. The band had previously been nominated for election 7 times. The Stooges were voted into the Michigan Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2008. And Iggy Pop has received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2020 for his solo work. So that's actually, if they got voted in to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the MC5, they didn't. I mean, they got the votes, but they got put in on that like side thing this year. So it's not like they were one of the bands that actually made it through the getting 70% of the votes. So yeah, I could see that happening via 7 times. That's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Arguably one of the, most influential bands. Kurt Cobain consistently called this record one of his favorite albums of all time. Alice in Chains, the Ramones, you can hear the influences of this band, and maybe not just in the sound, but just the energy of what they do. I don't think there's anybody in the history of rock and roll that is like Iggy Pop. I want to send you the picture, Greg, because I think I fucking, if I have it, this would have been the perfect time for me to pull it up, but I fucking was so worried about getting the goddamn sound to work. Let's do the final questions. We'll get you out of here. Please come back again, dude. We've got another 198 episodes, I think.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
I want to do Some Girls by the Rolling Stones. That's my next one.
We did that already.
Shit.
We
All
did
right.
that with Mark Maron.
It's my album.
Really?
We could do Blue, Joni Mitchell.
That's in 4 years. That's again the final. That's in the final 10, I think.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, dude. So just
Okay.
by that time, you'll have done Rogan 70 times, and you'll be at the top of the
All
middle.
right.
What's your favorite song on this record?
I think it's TVI. It's the one that, like, if I have my playlist and it has punk on it, that one seems to come up like first or second every time.
It's such a great song, dude.
Yeah.
What's your least favorite? Would you say it was the noise? The
Yeah,
noise
the Los
one?
Angeles blues is one of the worst things I've ever experienced. It reminds me of the end of a lot of Wilco songs.
Yes.
Like, they're
Yes.
beautiful harmonic songs, and all of a sudden they twist off into like something that a fucking grad student at Berkeley School of Music did for an assignment. It's just chaos.
Jeremiah, I'm sending you the picture. I just texted you the picture of me and Iggy Pop. So I want you to, can you put it on the screen in a second? Okay, cool. Because I want to talk about the story. I think it's pretty funny. All right. Can you fuck to this record, Greg? Can you
Oh,
fuck?
yes. Can you not is the question. Can you stop yourself from it? It's like, I'd fuck him. Like, that's the thing, is like, he experimented a lot with the men. Him and
Yes, he
David
did.
Bowie. I think probably Mick Jagger at some point. There was a lot of fluidity going on there. And with him, I get it. If it was 1975 and Iggy Pop came up to me at a nightclub with a back room, why not?
I also that's one of those things where I love David Bowie so much more and more that I learn about how this guy he knew what he liked. He would see stuff in these guys, whether it was Iggy, whether it was Lou Reed, whether it was Mott the Hoople, and he took their careers, and I think like really fucking. I think these are the things that it's like they were successful anyway, but with Bowie's help, man, he took them to the reason I think we're talking about them. And I know Bowie didn't have anything to do with this record, but he did work with Iggy later in life. He did work with Lou Reed, which he just did Transformer, and he's all over that. It's like David Bowie might have been the Duke Ellington of rock and roll, or like
yeah.
you know what I mean? That
Right.
like the Cole Porter, like the guy that's just he's the man, and
Yeah.
he knows and understands music.
Right.
I do think you can fuck to this, but I think it's a wild one.
Yeah. Yeah. You're going
wild-
to try a couple new moves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What would be your elevator pitch to get someone to listen to this record? What would it be if you were going to try to juice them up and be like, you got to listen to the Stooges Funhouse because blah.
I would say, you're a comedian. You got a big show coming up. You need to get juiced up for it. Get some headphones. Plan 45 minutes alone where you can just sit, close your eyes, and just get completely ramped up. Cut out the last song, and then go on stage and kill.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, this is a the way that like some people listen to like DMX before like a football game.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a record that if you have something big and you need to get this is a gym record. You could listen to this in the gym, and you're gonna
for
fucking,
sure.
I listened to it at the gym yesterday. Jared, do you have the picture? Can you put it up on the screen? So
Oh, look at that.
So it's not great. The dude on the left, the guy with the ponytail and the gray hoodie,
Yeah.
he got the good picture. He got the good angle.
Yeah.
But so he's coming out of the back of the 930 Club, and he sees us all waiting out there, and he rolls a window down, and he's got a scarf on. I might have other pictures too, but that's the only one that I think I've really saved. And so like fuck the guy in the gray zip up, the quarter inch zip up. But yeah, I mean that's a picture.
That's pretty sweet. You could do a little cropping on that one if you wanted to.
Can we turn his head a little bit? Like I would love to be able to like AI just kind of like just zoink it over just a
Yeah.
little bit. But yeah, man. Hey, dude, I was hoping like if I did that show with him in the Dominican Republic, I'd show him that and be like, dude, do you mind if we get a good picture this time? And that would have been funny if that guy in the fucking quarter-inch just goes like, "Oh, I'm here too." No,
Yeah.
dude, Greg, this ruled, man. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm sorry about the issues at the beginning with the sound.
No
but, dude,
sweat. Don't worry about
please,
it.
tell us about the special one more time. Where can we find it?
All right, it's called You Know Me. It's on YouTube, and yeah, lots of clips on my Instagram channel, Greg Fitzsimmons on Instagram. Got a bunch of live shows coming up. If you go to fitzdog.com, I'm coming to Tacoma and San Francisco, and I'm going to Alaska tomorrow. Yeah, I got a bunch of good gigs coming up, so come out and see some live comedy. Yeah.
Where? Juneau?
Fairbanks, 4 nights.
4 nights?
Yeah.
What's the club? Wait, was it a club or is it like?
No, this theater. There's small theaters. So I'm doing, and they're all in Fairbanks. They're doing one of them for 2 nights, and then there's 2 other locations. So I don't know. The guy's picking me up, and we're going.
What's the weather like there? What are you
It's
packing?
like 38, perfect.
Oh, not too bad.
Yeah, and it's 12 hours of daylight right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's not too bad.
I can't wait. I want to see some bears.
Dude, I love that. I love that. Please send photos, post a bunch. If you're out in America and you see Greg coming to your town, go see him. He's one of the best doing it. Greg, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks
on,
a
brother.
lot, man. I appreciate it.